from first. Hey. Hello. Okay, so we'll try to finish this. Yes, okay. So now can you hear me, Antonia B? Yes? Okay. So now we'll try to finish off this chapter. So we are just left with 2 more things to complete. So we have to mainly talk about your parasitism mode of interaction and your commensalism mode of interaction. So let's be done with that and we'll be done with the entire chapter. All right? Yes. So I was just telling, yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we teach for class 12 and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we teach for class 11. So today we'll try to finish the first chapter in ecology, that is organism and population. So in class 11, we have just started human physiology and tomorrow it will be lecture 2 of human physiology. All right. So shall we now go and talk about your organism and population? Yes. Okay, so this will be the last lecture, so I'll try to quickly finish it off. So we will not drag on this chapter anymore because it's already been a high time. So we have been talking about this chapter time and again and it's been 7 lectures. Yes, so what did we talk about in introduction? Come on guys, quickly like, share and subscribe quickly. Quick, make it quick. So I'll give you 2 more minutes so that you can like, share with your friends. Please do share the link and tell your friends that I'm teaching ecology. Yes, if my session is interesting for you. Okay, so in the introduction of this chapter, when I started your organism and population way back last week, I told you what is ecology and what is the importance of ecology, so why you should study ecology and all that. So that is what was under introduction. And then we went on to talk about your organism and environment. So once again, this chapter is broadly divided into 2 categories. One is organism and its environment. The other one is your population and its interaction, right? So first, how an organism interacts with an environment. So organism is different and a population is different. An individual is different, a population is different, right? So individually, how an organism is adapting to the environment. And the second thing we were talking about is how as a population we interact with the environment. Yes, so those are the 2 aspects of this topic. Hi Sadeshna, I hope you're good. So thank you so much for joining us today. So do like, share and subscribe. Yes, so we spoke about the major abiotic factors. So a quick recap of the major abiotic factors. What are they? So there are 4 major abiotic factors: soil, light, water and temperature, right? So these are the 4 abiotic factors that we were talking about. And next we spoke about how do we respond to these abiotic factors. So what are our responses? The first one, we try to regulate according to the temperature. Yes, we try to confirm, we try to migrate, and finally we suspend when the temperature is unfavorable. Example, your bears which try to hibernate, right? So these are the ways in which we respond to abiotic factors. So Great Dane says use some Hindi. So what Hindi you want me to use? Yes. So this is specifically an English medium channel. So please pardon me, I won't use any other language. All right. If you want, I can go a bit slowly. Yes, so that you can understand my English. That is one way that I can help you out. So I'm just revising. So what in the last 7 lectures that I've been talking about in this chapter. Okay. So this is how we respond to the major abiotic factors. All right. Then these in a way, for example, when I say we regulate to the temperature. So when I say when you go to Manali, yes, we get altitude sickness, but then we slowly or eventually try to cope up with it, right? Yes. So in a way, this is a kind of adaptation to a particular environment. So that is what we spoke about in adaptation. Fine. Okay. So adaptation also involves your Allen's rule, where we spoke that the palms and the ears of your animals living in your polar regions, in your snow-capped regions, are very small. Why? Because you have never seen a polar bear with long ears as long as your elephant's ears, right? So they have a very short ear, very short limbs, because to reduce the surface area by which they can minimize the loss of heat. All right. So that is one way. That is why they adapted in such a way. The next part of the chapter, so one part is about organism and environment. The other part of the chapter is about population. Okay. So how as a population? So this is about an individual organism. But what is a population? So let me tell you the hierarchy. So biomolecules make up a cell. Yes. And a group of cell makes up a tissue. and more than 2 or 3 tissue makes up an organ. An organ's group of organ makes up an organ system, and an organ system makes up an individual, and a group of individuals make up a population, and a group of population makes up a community, and a group of community makes up a biome, right? So how as a population we are trying to interact with the environment, because ecology is the study of an individual organism or a population and its interaction with the environment, right? So here we are trying to connect the entire story. Please take a session on time management. Yes, it's already been done. So if you have been watching my session before, so I have already done a session on effective time management strategy. So it is I guess 2 Saturdays before. Yes, so please go back and watch the session. It was already done, Sudeshna. So yes, guys, so yesterday I asked you for a suggestion as to what topic you want me to talk on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Yes, so every Saturday 7 to 8 p.m. we have a live session, right? Yes, which topic do you want me to talk on? So any suggestions, Anthony Abhi? Yes, so all those who are watching. The time management is done. So apart from that, do you have any chapters in mind that you want me to emphasize on? So do let me know. Yeah, the box is open for suggestions. So your suggestions are always welcome. Yes, because it is for you that I am talking. So if you are in need of any topic, if you want me to elaborate on something, yes, I can do. So 7 to 8 p.m. for all those who are new. So we talk about something general as to how to concentrate, what is time management, so what is mental health we spoke about last Saturday. So something that is very, very interesting. So please do put in your suggestions as well. Okay. Okay, Anthony. So thank you. So under population, we were talking about your population attributes. So what are the properties or what are the features of a population? For example, when I talk about an individual, I talk about birth or death, right? So an individual is born and an individual is dead. But as the population, when I take, so I cannot talk about a particular individual in a population. So population, so everyone is equally playing a role. So when it comes to a population, so I'll be talking in terms of birth rates and death rates. Yes, so this is the first attribute of a population. The next one, when I talk about an individual can either be a male or a female, right? But when I talk about a population can consist of male as well as a female. So a population has a definite sex ratio as well. And if I take a population, yes, so if I take a population, I have people of all age groups. So if I take the population in your school, right from the kids who are in standard 1 to the kids who are in standard 12, you're of different age groups, right? So in a population, you have a mixed age group. So when you plot your population against the age groups present in a given population, it gives you what is called as an age pyramid. Alright, so this age pyramid helps us understand whether the population is increasing or whether it's stable, whether it is declining. Alright, so this is how your age pyramid is read. Yes, Binu Vinay, good afternoon, it's okay. So please do like, share and subscribe. So we are here in the last lecture talking about ecology. Fine? Yes, I will try to finish ecology today. Then we wanted to know, how do you study the population growth? For example, if you're talking about population in a particular city, say for example, any city, say Kota, okay? So if you want to study whether the population in Kota is increasing or decreasing, of course, when students were not there, the population went down, yes? Now you have a lot of population coming in, so that is increasing, but what pattern it is following? So how do you study a growth population? So you have growth models, like we spoke about 2 growth models. One is exponential growth model, the other one is logistical growth model, right? So these are the 2 growth models, and we had a graph and we had a formula regarding the same. Yes? So last but not the least, we'll talk about how a population interacts with the environment. Yes? No, not really. It's not going. It's basically online coaching now. Okay. So how a population is going to interact with an environment. So based on that, we spoke about many mechanisms like mutualism, parasitism, predation, commensalism, amensalism, competition, right? So we are going to emphasize on the same. So that is population interaction. So we have been talking about predation, parasitism, commensalism. They all share a common characteristic, that is the interacting species live closely together. For example, mosquito is your parasite. So you and your mosquito live close by, right? It's not that the mosquito crosses oceans for you, bridges for you to come and bite you. You all breed in the same environment. So it is one common characteristic feature among all these type of interaction. So these are the different types of interaction. Yes, okay. Predation, parasitism and commensalism. So one common feature of these three types of interaction is that the interacting species live together. Fine? Yes? Yes. So this is classes are live from Kota. Yes, I am coming live from Kota. Okay? Yes? Fine? So first we have been talking about predation. So we are done with predation. So we are done with competition as well. So today we'll talk about parasitism. Okay, a quick recap of what we read in predation. So predation is a way of nature's way of transferring energy from one trophic level to the other trophic level. So what did we talk about under predation? A deer being chased by a tiger is predation. But even a bird eating a seed is a predator, because seed belongs to a different plant species, right? So that is also a predator. Yes. So what are the advantages of this type of interaction? So when I say predation, so what is the advantage of this type of interaction? So they keep the prey population in control. So if the tiger do not kill the deer, that is their nature's way of hunting down food, then the deer population will increase excessively. Yes. So the predation helps to keep the prey population in control. If not for the predators, the prey species would achieve very high population density, and it would lead to ecosystem instability. So everything has to be in the accurate amount, right? So none of the population should be too much or none should be too small. So everything has to be in the equal level to ensure that we have a stable ecosystem. So your prey population is kept in control by your predators. Okay. So sometimes exotic species are introduced into geographical locations. They become invasive and start spreading fast. So one example was your cactus plant. Yes. So when it was introduced, so it started spreading to very, very large acres of land. So finally they had to introduce a cactus eating moth to reduce the population of this plant. Okay. So this is also a type of prey and predation where you are trying to induce. So naturally they did not come into picture, but you are exploiting this type of interaction for your own purpose. Next, so the biological control methods adapted in agricultural pest control are based on the ability of predator to regulate the prey population. Okay, so predator also helps in maintaining the species diversity in a community by reducing the intensity of competition among competing prey species. So if you have two prey species, so then the predator will ensure that both the species are kept in check. The population of both the species are kept in check. Alright, so one example is about the starfish that we spoke about. Yes, if the starfish is taken out, so you have 10 species of invertebrates that became extinct, right? So this was one example that we were talking about. So now it is the turn of the prey to ensure that the interaction is healthy. So for the interaction of the prey and predator, so long the predator was playing a role. So who is the predator and who is the prey? If you have a tiger and a fox, okay, the tiger is going to hunt down the fox. So the fox is the prey and tiger is the predator. Alright. So now to maintain that interaction as healthy as possible, the predator was playing role, right? It is going to maintain the prey population in control. Point number 2, it is going to help maintain the species diversity. Now what does the prey will contribute? So what contribution does the prey will give? So point number 1, the prey also ensures, okay, sometimes if the prey population will also ensure that the population of the predator is in control. Okay, yes, that is also one reason. So listen to this. So if the predator is too efficient and over exploits its prey, if there are so many tigers and all the tigers kill down all the deers, then the tigers one day will go starving, right? So your prey will also ensure that the predator population as well as the prey population is in control. So the predators in nature are prudent. Alright, so prey species have evolved various defense mechanisms to lessen the impact of predation. Okay, so some insects are being camouflaged so that they are not being easily detected by the predator. Yes, so can you see the camouflage caterpillar here? Yes, so you have some more examples like your monarch butterfly, because it is very, very distasteful. So birds do not come to the monarch butterfly because it has a chemical present in its body. Alright, yes. Okay, so another example is about plants. So at least if it's a fox can run away from the tiger for some time, right? It can have one opportunity to save its life. But what about plants? Your cow is grazing on the plant. So how can the plant save itself? So what will it do? So that is also a type of predation, right? So for plants, all the herbivores are predators. Fine. So nearly 25% all insects are phytophagous. So phyto is plant, phagus is feeding on. Okay, they are phytophagous feeding on plant sap and other parts of the plant. Okay, so plants have evolved an astonishing variety of morphological and chemical defenses against herbivores. So we spoke about one weed called as calotropis. Yes, for example, yes, thorns like acacia and cactus, they show morphological defenses. Apart from that, we also spoke about your calotropis plant, that is your milkweed plant, which produces highly poisonous cardiac glycosides, right? Yes. So I showed you this is your thorn plants, okay, acacia and cactus. Apart from that, you have your calotropis. So this is your calotropis, yes. So next we were talking about competition. So competition is also a type of interaction. Okay, so Darwin told us the struggle for existence and the survival of fittest also ensures there is an interspecies competition that is present, right? So he is Mr. Charles Darwin. So he went on to talk about two general assumptions. So point number one, competition occurs between two closely related species. So that was the first assumption that we had. Okay, only if two species are closely related, we will have competition. Only competition occurs only if the resources are limiting. Alright, so these are the two general assumptions. Fine, but these assumptions were overruled. Just give me a second. So these two assumptions were overruled. So let's see how these two assumptions are overruled. Even competition can occur between two totally unrelated species. Okay. So they can compete for the same type of resources. So one example is even your flamingos and the fishes, those belong to your South American lakes. So both of them compete for the common food, that is your zooplankton. Alright, so these are your flamingos. Yes. They also feed on your zooplankton that is present inside your lake, as well as your fishes also feed on the zooplanktons, right? Yes. So the next type of competition is, the next type of assumption that we are going to rule out is that, so they said competition occurs only if the resources are limiting. No, competition can also, competition need not occur only if the resource is limiting. So one more example is interference competition. The feeding efficiency reduces, okay, when interfering and inhibitory presence of other species come into picture. For example, if you have two dogs, if you remember the example that I gave you, yes, if you have two dogs, yes, and one dog is trying to bully the other, it will never let the other dog eat at all. So that is also interference competition. So now they're competing for the same food, though the resource is not limiting here, right? So this is the example that we spoke about. So going further, so then how do you define competition? If you're going to rule out those two assumptions, so how is competition best defined? So fitness of one species significantly lower in the presence of other species. Alright, so when the resources are limited, superiorly competitive species will eventually eliminate out the inferior species. Alright, yes, so one example is your tortoise, okay. So your tortoise population was ruled out. when the goats were introduced into the population, because goats can chew the plants at a much faster rate. So when the goat population was introduced, then your tortoise population was completely extinct. Yes. Then you have a term called as competitive release, a species whose distribution was restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of competitively superior species. Okay, so if I go to the next street, that dog will bully me, so I am in this street. Thinks a dog. Okay, so which means it is trying to restrict its living to only one particular geographical area, right? It is found to expand its distributional range when the competing species has been eliminated. For example, when I say a group of elephants are living in Rajasthan, but if they cross the Rajasthan border, then they have a superior competitive species, okay, for which they are sure that they will be eliminated. So now the geographical distribution of the elephants will not be wide because they are scared to move out of Rajasthan. But if their competitor has been eliminated, then the geographical range will increase. Yes, that is what I was trying to say. So we spoke about Colonel Elegant's field experiment that talks about the Scotland rock, where we spoke about barnacles. Yes, you had two types of barnacles where it is competitive release. So these outsmart these population. So when these are eliminated, so they can survive happily. All right. So barnacles are small arthropod-like animals. So last but not the least, under your competition interaction, so we spoke about Gauss competitive exclusion principle. Okay. So two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely. Okay. For example, two closely related species, just take a lion and tiger, they are competing for your deer population. Yes. Competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. So whichever has more capability in hunting will eventually survive. The other population will gradually die down, right? So that is what I mean here. So this may be true if the resources are limiting, but vice versa, it may not be true. Okay. So, so species are facing competition, so that is what we are concluding. So, if the species are competing for the same resource, your species have also come up with mechanisms so that they also show their fittest survival. So, how is this happening? So, that is called as resource partitioning. So, if two species are competing for the same resource, they avoid competition by choosing different time periods of feeding or different foraging conditions. So, foraging means different conditions for searching of mate, shelter, etc. Yes. So, one example that we are talking about is your warblers. So, warblers are small birds. You have 5 different types of warblers living on the same tree, but yet they do not compete with each other and they coexist peacefully. So, these are those type of birds. All right, is this clear? Fine. Okay, so the next type of interaction that we're going to talk about is parasitism. So this parasitic mode of life ensures free lodging and free meal, right? If someone is going to be a parasite, for example, say you have a very irritating friend coming into your house, yes, you're going to provide with shelter as well as food, but still you're going to get irritated. That is at the end of the day. So that is how your parasitism has worked so far. So your parasitism is now present in plants, from your plants to your higher vertebrates. All right. Yes. Okay, Anthony Abhi. Fine. So many parasites have evolved to be host specific. For example, a particular insect will become a parasite only on that particular host. They are very, very host specific. It can only become a parasite for this host. Okay. So they are very, very host specific. They can parasite only a single species of host. But the host and the parasite tend to co-evolve to ensure that the parasitism interaction is being maintained. For example, understand bacteria is a parasite. So Salmonella typhi, which causes your typhoid, is your parasite, and we are the host for it. Okay. So now we are coming out with antibiotics, right, to kill the bacteria. But at the same time, your bacteria is smart enough that it comes out with your CRISPR-Cas mechanism. I don't know if you have heard, but the bacteria has a very, very innate mechanism known as CRISPR mechanism. They also have very beautiful mechanism by which they can bypass our immune system's reaction, right? So that is how the bacteria is also trying new methods to co-evolve, and we are also trying and working out so many antibiotics to kill the bacteria, right? So always remember the host and the parasite tend to co-evolve. All right. Yes. So if the host evolves special mechanisms for rejecting or resisting the parasite also has mechanisms to counteract and neutralize the evolved mechanism. If the host is giving mechanisms so that it can in one go throw the parasite at the same time is equally evolving to counteract the mechanism given by the host. All right. Yes. Yes, Aman, hello, hi. So thank you so much for joining my session. Yes, pretty long day, after pretty long time you're here. So thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. So we are talking about the last lecture of your ecology. All right. Okay. So parasites have also evolved special adaptations. They have lost unnecessary sense organs, presence of adhesive organs and suckers to cling on to the host. Yes, your Salmonella typhi, it enters, suppose if it's entering through your skin. Okay, if it's entering through your gut wall. So it has special mechanisms or organs to suck in the proteins, bacterial proteins. Then the loss of digestive system and high reproductive capacity. All right, so that is known as parasitism. Okay. So one example of parasitism is your human liver fluke. It needs 2 hosts to complete its life cycle. Sometimes the parasite needs 2 hosts because the life cycle of a parasite is pretty complex. It needs an intermediate host. It needs a primary host. So one example is your human liver fluke. It needs 2 hosts. One is your snail and the other one is your fish to complete its reproductive cycle. So one more example that you know is your malaria. Yes, first it needs, it's your plasmodium. So first it needs a mosquito, then it needs a human, right? So what are the types of parasitism? So you have ectoparasite and you have endoparasite. So ecto is on the surface. Yes, can you see? So these are small insects present on the surface of a fish. So this is called as ectoparasite. So this ectoparasite actually, so one example of ectoparasite is ticks in case of dogs and lice in case of humans. So they are also, this is called as aquatic copepods. So copepods is to any hanging structure of the fish. If the parasite attaches, it is called as copepods. All right. The other type of parasitism is your endoparasite. Yes, one that lives inside your host organism. So where it can live in your lungs, liver, kidney, brain, etc. Yes. So for example, when I told you Salmonella typhi, so the target organism for that is your small intestine. Yes. Yes, we are able to kill the parasite, but the parasite is also equally evolving. Okay. Yes. So if we are trying to kill the parasite with the help of antibiotics, your parasites are becoming antibiotic resistant, right? So the antibiotics that we used 20 years before we are not able to use it now because your bacteria has evolved. They are also coexisting. So that is the reason. All right. Yes. Fine. So these are your ectoparasites. So one more beautiful or fascinating example of your parasitism is called as brood parasitism. So what is this brood parasitism? So brood parasitism in birds is a fascinating example of parasitism in which the parasitic bird lays its eggs in the nest of the host bird and it lets the host bird incubate it. So during the course of evolution, the parasitic bird's eggs have been evolved to resemble the egg of a host in size and in color so that the host bird does not recognize it and reject it. For example, so the blue eggs are the ones that are laid by the host. Okay. So this is a parasitic egg. So over time, these eggs are also become the same size as the blue eggs and they've also become the same color. So that now your host bird will not recognize this as a parasite egg, right? So this is the mechanism by which they're trying to co-evolve together. Fine. So the last type of mechanism is your commensalism. Okay. Yes, you're right. Even cuckoo and crow can be an example of brood parasitism. Yes, Aman, you're right. Okay. So the last type of, so the last before type of example that we're going to talk about is commensalism. So interaction in which one species is benefited and the other is neither harmed nor benefited. So one example is your orchid growing as an epiphyte, okay, as a small part on the bark of your tree on a mango branch, okay. Then barnacles growing on the dorsal surface of your whale. Okay. So your orchid and your barnacles benefit because they are getting a shelter to live on too. Whereas your mango tree and your whale, they are hardly benefited. So these are your orchids. Can you see the main stem of the main branch of the tree? Okay. It is a stem. It is the bark of the tree. So on that, these are growing. Okay, they are your orchids. They are growing as epiphytes. And these are the barnacles present on the surface of your whale. Okay, they are small orthopods. Yes, they live into the dorsal surface of your whale. But here your mango tree nor your whale is being harmed. Alright, is this much clear? Okay. So, have you seen this erget? So, erget is a bird. So, can you have you seen a bird sitting on a cow sometime? Yes. So, we see always, right? So, why does this happen? So, any idea why does this happen? Because your erget is very poor in finding out where the insect is in a crowd of bushes, okay? It feeds on plant insects, small insects which feed on leaves. So, your erget is a bird that feeds on those insects, alright? So, what will happen here? So, your erget finds it very difficult to find a bird. So, when it sits on a cow, the cow is eating the leaves, right? So, here and there when it comes across a insect of its interest, it will start eating. So, here the cow is neither harmed nor benefited, but only your erget is benefited, right? So, this is also an example of your commensalism, okay? Yes? It is parasitism because sometimes the egg, so that bird when it comes out can harm your host bird, okay? Yes. Sometimes the other birds will not be, so the host bird's egg will not be properly incubated, okay? So your parasite bird will take up all the incubation that is necessary. So that can be the reason why it is called as a parasite. It is called as a brood parasite. It is not being completely harmed, but in one way it is getting harmed, okay? Yes? Fine. So then your sea anemone and your clownfish. So if you remember when we're talking about your animal kingdom, so I gave you a hell a lot of examples. So one example which is sea anemone. So sea anemone protects your clownfish, right? So here your sea anemone is neither benefited nor harmed. It just protects your clownfish from the predation. Yes, so these are the examples of commensalism. Alright, yes? Okay, fine. So the last slide of this chapter is mutualism. So what is mutualism? So mutualism is when both the organisms are benefited, okay? So for example, you have a species A and a species B. So both the organisms have a mutual understanding that no one is harmed, but both are being benefited, okay? So we say mutual understanding, no? So it is something like that. So what are these? So lichens, we call it as a symbiotic association between your algae and your fungi, right? So these are mutualism. The other one is mycorrhiza. Yes, so mycorrhizae, what happens? So this is the symbiotic association between your fungi and your higher plant roots, right? So what is the mechanism here? So your fungi helps in the absorption of certain minerals from the soil, okay? So the fungi absorb certain minerals and gives it to the plant. The plant in turn supplies the fungi with some kind of nutrition, right? So that is about mutualism. So long we have been talking about the interaction of population. How a particular population. So here your algae is a particular population. Your fungi is a different population, right? So how are they trying to interact, right? So that is what we are talking about. Fine. So these are the types of population interaction. So once again, we started off with predation. Yes, in predation, we spoke about a lot of examples. And when we spoke about competition, we spoke about competition release. We spoke about resource partitioning. We spoke about Gauss competition exclusive principle. Then we went on to talk about parasitism now. Then we spoke about commensalism and finally mutualism. All right. For example, some animals, for example, there are some animals, even plants and animals can be parasites. So, plants and animals can also have a mutualism type of interaction. So, how? Some insects, they try to help the plants in pollination. So, the plants in return provide them with nectar, right? So, there can be some insects which will only take up the nectar but will not help the plants in pollination. So, your plant will try to identify those insects and it will resist them from taking nectar. So, meaning your plant will also evolve mechanisms that can counteract with them, okay? So, everything has to mutually co-evolve. So, this process is equally important, all right? Yes, Aman, you're right. So, that example is also possible, All right, so this is all about your organism and population. So together it was a very beautiful chapter where we spoke about so many examples in nature, right? So it all started with how an organism can behave in an environment. So it basically started with your physiological ecology, right? How an individual organism is being adapted. Yes, so we spoke about different biomes. For example, it all started, so we have 5 biomes in India. So the first one is desert, Himalayan region, tropical, rainforest, etc. Right? So if you talk about a desert region, if you talk about camel, the adaptation of camel, the behavior of a camel is with respect to the biome it is present. For example, a camel has an adaptation of a hump. Yes, the skin is such that it can minimize the water loss, etc. So how an individual organism is fit in an environment, how it is trying to survive despite the abiotic conditions, so how it is trying to respond to the abiotic conditions. That is what we spoke about in the first half of the chapter. So once again, in the second half of the chapter, we started talking about population. We were done talking about a particular organism, its adaptation and its response. So in the second half, we were talking about a group of population, properties of a population. So how do you study population growth? So what are the models to study population growth? So all that is what we were discussing. And finally, we came out with how population interacts, how a group of population interacts with other. Yes, that is called as, so that is by various means. So it all started with your predation, competition, commensalism, parasitism, and mutualism, right? So with this, we come to a successful conclusion of chapter 1 under ecology. So that is your organism and population. So I have taught each and every line in detail. So please don't take this chapter light, or please don't even imagine that you can skip this chapter. No, it's a very easy one if you understand how the chapter has been designed. All right, so that is my humble request. So with this, we come to a beautiful end. So in the next class, that is Monday, so I'll be continuing with the second chapter in your unit ecology. All right, yes. So meanwhile, tomorrow at 3 p.m, so we are going to talk about your digestive system. So that is digestion and absorption. It will be lecture 2. So yesterday where we stopped, so we are going to continue from there tomorrow. All right. So tomorrow you'll have a live session at 7 p.m. as well. So that is where we are going to talk something apart from all your biology, apart from your class 11 and class 12. So please be ready for the new session at 7 p.m. All right. Yes. So commensalism is where one is benefited, but the other, so one organism is being harmed, whereas the other is neither being harmed or benefited. Okay. So can you give me one example of commensalism? So I gave you so many examples of your population interaction. Okay. So commensalism is like this, where your plant, okay, gives a nectar to an insect, but an insect fails to pollinate the plant. Okay, that is the example of your commensalism. Okay, so here the insect is getting benefited. Yes, the plant is being harmed, right? So this is also a case where you can talk about. So this is also a type of population interaction. Okay, yes, yes, fine. Yes, this content is more than enough for me. So they're not going to ask anything extra. So I will let you know. So in the next week, I'll try to conduct mentee probably on Monday or Tuesday, most hopefully. And if it is there, I will let you know through the Telegram group. So this week, I couldn't conduct mentee because the slot was busy and occupied. The next week, I promise I'll come back with a mentee. So if we are having mentee, so we'll have it in your structural organization in animals, that is lower animals like your cockroach and animal tissues. We'll also have a mentee in morphology of flowering plants. All right, is that clear? Yes. Okay, fine. So with this, I say a goodbye. So I will meet you tomorrow. So thank you for being a wonderful audience. If you genuinely understood this entire chapter, so please do like, share and subscribe. All right. Yes. Okay. So this is me signing off. So take care and have a great evening. So bye-bye.